All right, the big news at this hour, the Supreme Court has asked the centre to submit all names of black money account holders by tomorrow. That's what the Apex Court has said to the centre, and it has also said that the new regime cannot come and tell them how to modify their orders. The Supreme Court has asked the centre to share all information on black money received from foreign banks with the top court. Mr. Subhash Kashyap, constitutional expert, now joins me on the phone line. Mr. Kashyap, thank you so much for speaking with Headlines today. What do you make of this order by the Supreme Court to the centre? Is it possible, really, within hours to produce that list?
Well, I have not seen the order, but apart from being a student of the Constitution, as you perhaps know, I am one of the petitioners in the case, along with Mr. Ram Jethmalani.
Yes.
So I can only welcome any effort, any direction, any development which to the public domain, names of all the persons who have expressed foreign money, Indian money abroad.
All right, Mr. Kashyap, thank you so much for joining us. Also in the studio, I have consulting editor Rajdeep Sardesai and executive editor Javed Ansari. Rajdeep, what do you make really of this order? Is it realistically possible really to produce that list? And as Ashish was pointing out earlier, about 200 odd names would be of NRIs in that list.
You know, Vedika, I think the very fact that the order now makes it clear that the government has to provide all the names in a sealed envelope, first of all, defies the government's argument. The argument that the government made was that unless prosecution is launched, we cannot reveal these names. Now the government is being pushed into a position where at least in a sealed envelope, they have to reveal the names to the Supreme Court. So the government's argument that because of the double abundance taxation treaty, we cannot reveal the names, that argument has been thrown out of the window. The second part of it is more interesting, that out of these names, as you rightly said, and Ashish was pointing out, many of them are NRIs, many of them will claim to have legal accounts. Then we come to the question of the rest. How many of them are small fish of the kind we saw yesterday come out, or are they actually big names of the kind which will really create a political furor? So I think the key question now is what the Supreme Court says, because the Supreme Court could well turn around and say, why have you not acted against these people who have foreign bank accounts and have not provided adequate reasons as to why they had this account. So much now will depend on the Supreme Court. The pace of this investigation is no longer in the hands of Mr. Arun Jaitley and the NDA, it's now in the hands of the Supreme Court.
All right, I also have senior advocate Mahesh Jethmalani joining me on the phone. And Mr. Jethmalani, what do you make of this order by the Supreme Court? It is a wrap for the centre, as well as something that the centre was not expecting.
Well, I don't know why the centre was not expecting it, because it was in line with the previous decision of the Supreme Court. I have no idea, and I must say I'm extremely disappointed with my own government that they did this. They made this application for a modification of the previous order. They've been rightly rebuffed in the Supreme Court. We must welcome the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has struck a very, very telling blow against corruption and for upholding the equality of the law, the law in general in this country. And it really is a red letter day as far as I'm concerned.
But do you believe, Mr. Jethmalani, that these names should be kept within a sealed envelope, or do you believe these names should be put out in the public domain even before prosecution is launched?
Well, I think these names should be made public immediately. There is no bar and there is no adverse interest. Nobody suffers. If you have a legitimate account abroad, there is no embarrassment in it being revealed. There is no right of privacy, and I can't think of any interest that is more compelling than national interest and exposure of those who plundered and looted the nation.
All right, Mr. Jethmalani, do stay with me. I also have Ashish Mehrishi joining us on the phone line. Ashish, just take us through the latest developments, because this is something that the centre really wasn't expecting within hours to submit all those names in a sealed envelope.
Well, Vedika, we have to understand 2-3 facts here. One is that you know, are these accounts legitimate accounts or not? One, NRIs can open legitimate accounts, but as far as Indians goes, they have to make a declaration in their income tax return, and at the same time, if they have to open an account abroad, they have to take permission from Reserve Bank of India. So on the face of it, we have to accept the fact that these are illegitimate accounts, because otherwise, you know, it must be into the knowledge of income tax authorities as well as Reserve Bank of India. So obviously, you know, at least 6 out of the 628 names, you can say that most of them would be illegitimate accounts, at least the 2/3 part, because 1/3 our sources say are NRIs. So here, once it comes into the hands of the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court directs the special investigation team to investigate, because here, what the observations of the Supreme Court is that at least till, the way the center or, the earlier government or the present government, the way they have been working on investigations as far as black money goes, it is at a very snail pace, and it does, the Supreme Court said that it seems that, at least in their lifetime, the names will never be revealed. So here after the observation, this order came that yes, you have to give it within
Yes.
hours. You have to submit this data to us by tomorrow. So here, obviously, it is a big setback for the center, because they have been using the cushion of DTA and TIEA, suggesting that at least till they cannot make the names public, or they cannot even give it to the Supreme Court till there is prosecutable evidence against a particular person. So, but here, they say that it does not bar you to give this data to the Supreme Court, and obviously the AG had no option but to accept that that the data will be submitted by tomorrow.
Ashish, do stay with me. Mr. Jethmalani, if you're still there with me, doesn't this defeat the stand of the centre that they have been maintaining for the last few months now, that only when there is prosecutable evidence can they go ahead and disclose those names?
Absolutely. I mean, it is a very severe rebuff to the government today, and I cannot. First of all, I can't understand why they ever made that indulged in this misadventure in the Supreme Court, and rightly, as I said, they have been rebuffed.
Would you say then that the promise of the BJP was there on black money, but not the intent?
No, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I'm still of the view. I still believe that there was some bad advice from the existing bureaucracy, who already had a vested interest, because they gave the same advice to the previous government, and they were obviously not willing to budge, and they wanted to convince this government that the previous advice they had given was right. And this government obviously has not done its legal homework well.
All right. One last question before I let you go, Mr. Jethmalani. How realistically possible is it to have all those names with the Supreme Court in a sealed envelope by tomorrow?
But the government has no choice but to give those names in a sealed envelope to the court tomorrow, and I hope that the Supreme Court makes it public. But that's, of course, within the discretion of the Supreme Court.
All right, Mahesh Jethmalani, thank you so much for speaking with Headlines Today. Javed, I believe you have a point to make on the developments in the Supreme Court.
This will also severely restrict and curtail the government's ability to leak names selectively. In the run-up to the elections, all kinds of innuendos and allegations were made. Now we will know for sure if there was a grain of truth in them or not, because they will not be able to selectively leak names, and they will not be able to add names which were not there in the original list, because this original list has to go to the apex court. You can't play politics over there. The politics of insinuation and innuendo will hopefully come to an end now, at least on the subject of black money.
All right. So Rajiv, the tax treaties is not a garb behind which the BJP can actually withhold those names anymore, because now the Supreme Court's rap is a final way forward.
That's right. And as I said, now earlier it was the Supreme Court which appointed an SIT under which the entire process began. Now you've got the Supreme Court which is saying reveal all names. So effectively, it's the Supreme Court which is now driving the investigation. And if the government wanted to take the moral high ground, they can't take it anymore. You see, till the other day, they could have taken the moral high ground and said, we are revealing a few names because there's prosecution against them. We'll reveal more names in a week. In 1 month, we'll reveal more. That process is over. Now they have to reveal all the names to the Supreme Court, and it's the Supreme Court which will monitor now the pace of the investigation. So I think to that extent now, finally, and Javed is absolutely right, this cloud which has hung over who is actually holding an illegal foreign account, who is holding a legal foreign account, are there names of politicians, Congress, BJP, any other party? All this hopefully now will be decided by the Supreme Court. The big challenge before the Supreme Court, as Mahesh Jethmalani said, is he believes that they should reveal all the names, make them public. My sense is the Supreme Court is unlikely to ask for the names to be made public on day one. They will now have to exercise their wisdom in taking a final call. Do you want to make all the names public on day one, or do you want to go by this by the principle which has been adopted that unless prosecution is launched, the names cannot be revealed? So I think that will now be purely in the domain of the Supreme Court. The government can't take that decision. Arun Jaitley can't take that decision. The NDA government can't take the decision. Any decision now on revealing names will only be taken by the Supreme Court of India.
So clearly
Whatever
this is a
political
breakthrough.
advantage the NDA would have hoped to derive on this, that's been severely curtailed.
And this is being seen as a breakthrough with the court really intervening here. All right, Prashant Bhushan also reacting to that big development. Let's just listen in.
2 साल पहले हम लोग के प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में HSBC बैंक के जिन्होंने माना था कि उनके अकाउंट थे और अवैध थे, लेकिन फिर भी उनके नाम नहीं दिए गए, तो ये एप्लीकेशन भी कल कोर्ट के सामने पेश करी जाएगी।
प्रशांत सर, ऐसे अनुमानित कितने नाम हो सकते हैं जो कल केंद्र सरकार सीलबंद लिफाफे में सुप्रीम कोर्ट में सौंपेगी? दूसरा सवाल, केंद्र सरकार को फटकार लगाते हुए आप सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने क्या कहा है? क्या कहा है? क्या ऑब्जर्वेशन?
नहीं, नाम तो करीब 700 तो HSBC बैंक के ही थे, शायद 700 के करीब, तो कम से कम वो 700 नाम तो आने ही चाहिए। नहीं, कोर्ट ने ये बोला कि भाई तुम लोग इतने दिन हो गए, तुम्हारा इन्वेस्टिगेशन नहीं हुआ, पता नहीं तुम लोग क्या कर रहे हो, और ये हमको नाम दे दो, हम SIT से जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन करवाना होगा, और SIT डायरेक्शन देगी जिसको जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन करना है, या हम देंगे या SIT देगी, फिर हम लोग उसको इन्वेस्टिगेशन को मॉनिटर करेंगे। Yes, today the Supreme Court heard the case regarding this black money, where the government's application for modifying the earlier orders of the court for disclosure of the names of account holders in foreign banks which the government had received. The court prima facie did not agree with the government that there is any need for modification of that order. The court also told the government that it must disclose all these names that it has received from these countries of account holders to the court tomorrow, and therefore the government would have to disclose these names to the court. The court also said that these orders were passed in open court after hearing them. Thereafter, the review application was filed that was also that did not contain this prayer, etc., and now therefore there is no reason for modifying these orders. Meanwhile, Arvind Kejriwal has also prepared an application for intervention, which we had taken today to the court, but unfortunately that could not be brought up today in the hearing, in which we have pointed out that 2 years ago in a press conference, Arvind Kejriwal and I had revealed the names of at least 10 people who were there in the HSBC set of accounts, and the sworn statements of 3 people before the income tax departments who had admitted that their accounts were illegal and the fact that the bank had helped them to take money abroad through Hawala channels. Unfortunately, those names have also not been disclosed by the government, though the government claimed that they are disclosing the names of the people against whom investigations have been completed, because these investigations should have been completed more than 3 years ago.
All right, that was Prashant Bhushan. On the phone line, Ashish Maharishi now joins me from outside the Supreme Court. Ashish, a very significant point being made by the top court as well, where they've gone on to say we will not modify our 2011 order. Now, for the benefit of our viewers, just take us through that order.
Well, the 2011 order, Vedika, very clearly says that the centre has to give all data as far as in black money goes, as far as all lists that have been shared by either by the French government or the German government.
All right, Ashish, I will have to interrupt you then.